And this is a Fox News alert, and we are awaiting a press conference, a police press conference, into the very latest on the investigation into the deadly San Bernardino, California shooting. Jonathan Hunt is live on the ground in California with the name now of the second suspect. Jonathan.
Sean, Rick Serrano, who is a well-respected reporter with the LA Times, just reporting that he has been told directly by San Bernardino police that the name of another suspect in this incident is Taib bin Ardogan, I believe it would be pronounced Ardogan. And according to the reporting of the LA Times, that person is a 28-year-old citizen of the Middle Eastern nation of Qatar. So that goes with the other name that has been put out there, Saeed Farouk, who we understand from the reporting of our own Catherine Herridge is a U.S. citizen. But now San Bernardino police, according to the reporting of the LA Times, are naming a 28-year-old Qatari citizen as another suspect in this incident. Sean. All
right, Jonathan, thank you so much. Joining us now from Washington, from the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, our friend Dr. Zhudi Jasser. Dr. Jasser, I know CARE is going to hold a press conference. We are hearing, again, the Washington Times, the New York Daily News, reporting that Saeed Farouk's father has spoken out. He was a devout Muslim. Now you hear that this woman is a 28-year-old citizen of Qatar. In everybody's mind, and the sheer volume of law enforcement and FBI resources being thrown into this case leads one to think that this now may very well be a terrorist attack. That means now people are going to look at the names. People are going to look at the location. If, in fact, this woman's from Qatar, and they're going to say, is this radical Islam? Your thoughts?
Well, Sean, our hearts and prayers are with the families, and I just get tongue-tied thinking about how many more of these do we need before American Muslims stand up and say, we have a problem, we need an intervention. I mean, I know we're still trying to get the facts, but organizations are already putting out press releases saying that this is just some psychiatric issue or it doesn't represent. Well, listen.
No, they don't know
if
that.
we want to. I know,
by the way,
exactly.
we can't make a definitive statement that it is terror, but again, we're trying to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
And we have the report. I find it very interesting what the neighbor was saying. People up late at night, a lot of packages going to the homes. I don't know if it's connected to the Christmas party where there's a fight that took place. They seem prepared for some type of attack. They didn't leave the area. They could have gotten away. They could have changed vehicles. They could have separated. That tells me that maybe they were willing to go down in this battle. But I think a lot of questions are going to be raised, especially in light of the question that is now before the American people and the president's insistence against the advice of his director of national intelligence and his FBI director and his assistant FBI director and other intelligence officials that he still wants to bring in Syrian refugees, even though law enforcement is telling us that ISIS might infiltrate the refugee population. I got to assume that a 28-year-old citizen from Qatar is going to, reignite that debate, no?
Well, it's going to reignite the debate, but also reignite the fact that we're at war. And ISIS is infiltrating the viral mind through ideology, and that this is a homegrown, it sounds, if these two did it as part of an ISIS operation. By the way, it is seeming more like terror when you have more than one individual, and it's an operation that they did. And they're looking at softer and softer targets because they want, this is the power of asynchronous warfare. They want to make America, I mean, we're already seeing some tweets online, Sean, that say America burning, and they're trying to, ISIS is, whether they did it or not, starting to take credit for it because their social media is about trying to destroy our society from within so that the freedom, the appeal of America is no longer there, so the Sunnis can start going back to Syria and they can rip us apart.
I mentioned this earlier. As we were debating the issue of Syrian refugees, what did we learn? We learned that there are 1,000 plus FBI probes into ISIS sympathizers in this country. Now, new statistics come out today from George Washington University. What did they report? 71 people in America have been arrested nationwide for alleged connections to ISIS, 13 of them from New York, 11 from Minnesota, and around 250 Americans have tried to travel or successfully reached Syria or Iraq to join ISIS. So the FBI is telling us ISIS is here. The National Director of Intelligence is saying that, yeah, ISIS is likely to infiltrate the Syrian refugee community. The FBI director is saying we can't possibly vet them all in the right way. Are we too open with people that come from societies where there are huge cultural divides with our Constitution and our belief in liberty, those that may live under Sharia law?
Well, Sean, as long as the conversation doesn't include a vetting of political Islam. I mean, the reason I'm in Washington right now is we have a summit of reform-minded Muslims that is coming together. We planned this for months ago, and the sad thing is there's an attack every few weeks now because we're doing nothing to vet against the ideology of political Islam, which is a political ideology about Islamic State supremacism over Western freedom ideology, and this virus is going to infect. But there's a clash of cultures, Zhudi. There is a definitive class of cultures. This is just a fact. If you grow up under Sharia law, where women can't drive, 4 male eyewitnesses needed for rape, they can't be seen in public without a male relative, all of the stringent requirements for dress for women and treatment of women and minorities, etc. If you grow up in that culture, it is the antithesis of what our constitutional rights provides every citizen in America. Do we have to take in that conflict when we allow people from Qatar or those societies to come into America? Because the bigger part of this battle is that conveyor belt that's radicalizing hundreds of millions of a 1.6 billion in the planet. If we are you're going to surrender to that ideology if you close the walls and say America isn't about freedom and liberty. If you want to take sides not against all Islam, but within the House of Islam
But here's the question. How do you ascertain, how do you get into the minds and hearts of the 10,000 Syrian refugees? We're told that 13 to 15%, according to surveys, sympathize with ISIS. How do you get into the minds and hearts of those people and ascertain who comes here with pure intentions for a better life for them and their family, and who wants to kill us? And why should Americans take the risk? And why is the president willing to gamble with the lives of Americans?
Sean, you're right. I mean, ask my family in Syria. They know who's coming from the north of ISIS areas that are jihadists versus those that want freedom. I mean, the refugees, the vast majority of them are escaping Assad, not necessarily ISIS. And the bottom line is that there is an internal battle going on, which is not just about Islamism versus freedom, but it also is about Assad and dictatorship. So America, to be on the side of good, needs to embrace those Muslims. Just like in the Cold War, we embrace Russians, Vietnamese, and others that wanted freedom, and yet we realized that within them was an ideological enemy that we didn't want to bring on board. The problem is nobody in our government wants to engage reformists to help us vet them.
Listen, Zhudi, I appreciate everything you're saying, and I know where your heart is, and I have been very critical that there aren't more Muslims like yourself that speak out against the hijacking of Islam. And you're right, but the numbers of radical sympathizers are way too high, and the voices of moderates like yourself are, while there are some, there's not enough. But I got to run. I don't mean to cut you off, my friend. All right, we are awaiting a press conference by the police on the latest on today's shooting in San Bernardino, California. 14 dead, 17 injured. We'll have the latest as we continue here on the Fox News Channel.